Do I look comfy? Yes, I do. I'm very comfy. Howdy-o, everybody. Coming to you cordless from Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, and here where I'm sitting in Minneapolis in Northeast Minneapolis, it's 8 p.m. Central Time. I am Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. It's episode number 189 if you're keeping score at home, and you should, because I said so. So what do we got going on tonight? Jeff MEYER is our guest from CONK News, CONK.news. But before he comes on, we got Tim Conaway. We're going to add him just a second because Tim and I, well, here, let's just put him on, and we'll just talk at him. Hi.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. I had some good Thai food and warmed me up a little bit here in the snowy evening.
You still look young.
Well, that's because I am young. I'm only 72 and
yeah. Only. Well, my mother's 100, so it's like so she's doing fine. She's okay. All right, so now the reason I'm having you on, Tim, I put this in the description tonight, is because you and I both lived in Los Angeles. Well, we were there at the same time, but you were there a lot longer than I was. Were you there for like 20 years?
25, yeah.
25, yeah. And I know this. You texted me this yesterday, but you didn't have to. You lived very close, if not to the edge of the Palisades, where the Palisades fire are right now, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's where it's burning. I was looking at it. It's about a mile away from where I lived, and that area is under evacuation warning notice. So yeah, pretty scary. There were a lot of fires when we were out there, and sometimes there were fires up in the Santa Monica Mountains. We would get some ashes raining down and smoke, but never anything that got this close. It was pretty scary.
Yeah, that's the thing that we were talking. There's always been fires in the LA County, for sure. And for those of you who don't know, and I want to make sure I get this right, LA County is the largest single county in the United States by population, and I think also by area too. I'm not sure, but
it's like 770 square miles.
Yeah, it basically covers the entire LA metro, of which maybe the city of Los Angeles is only about half of that.
Yeah.
But like we were saying, there's always been fires there, but I never remember or heard of a fire actually coming into the city. I mean, that's what's different here than all the other previous fires. This is actually burning right in the middle of the city. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's right. There in the last couple of days, there have been 5 different fires there. The Pacific Palisades fire is the one everybody's hearing about, but there's also been a fire up in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And, everybody knows the Rose Parade and Rose Bowl that happens in Pasadena. The fire out in Sylmar, which is on the very north end of the valley, again, and, adjacent to a mountainous region. There was a fire up in the Hollywood Hills, which has actually been contained, and I think they might have it out by now. And there's another fire kind of east of the city. But to give people a kind of the lay of the land out there who might not haven't been out there, Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles is like 25 miles from the ocean.
Yeah, right.
And, but it extends all the way to the ocean in various directions. And then there's some little cities there, but Pacific Palisades is actually part of Los Angeles, but it's right next to the ocean. And if you take Sunset Boulevard, well, first let me say there's a Santa Monica Mountains start just north of downtown Los Angeles, and they head west to the ocean, and then they turn north and go along the coast there. And Sunset Boulevard starts about the same place, and it kind of winds around, goes all the way down to the ocean itself. And the Palisades started being developed in the 1930s because it was close to the ocean. It was kind of rural there, but it was along Sunset Boulevard. So there was a major, paved road for the people who worked in the movie industry, which was, farther east from there. And so some of the homes out there are, maybe 90 years old or 80 or 90 years old. There
Yeah.
are families that have lived there for 3 and 4 generations in there, as well as all the newer homes. Now it's all built up. At the top of the Santa Monica Mountains, coming out in that area, that's undeveloped. That's remained open, and there are a lot of fire roads out in there to give firefighters access to that area should it catch on fire. But the structural part, the part where all the structures are and stuff, have caught on fire. And because it's mountainous, there are canyons and arroyos, as they call them. And so a few things have happened here. What usually happens with a fire out in the west is it can start for various reasons, but once it starts, it's not really a forest out there. It's what is called chaparral, which is a lot of different desert type plants, the cholla and juniper and a lot of plants like that. And they're not only very dry, well, tinder dry on the outside, but they have a lot of oil in them, like, pine tar. And so when they catch fire, they burn hot and they burn fast, and they send these embers up, and the embers, blow along on the wind, and they land on things, and they're not only super hot, but they're sticky. So, that it helps to spread the fire. And what's happened in the Palisades and in these other places is this fire has spread to structures which provide a lot more fuel for the fire. So the fires get hotter and get bigger. And then the other thing that's complicating this is that there's always a breeze that's coming off the ocean. And it's, not really that heavy. It's cool and it's moist, but it goes in to the desert area. Well, there's a high pressure front in the desert area, so that ocean breeze is hitting that and bouncing back. And as it crosses the desert, it picks up a lot of heat, and it builds up speed. And so that's coming at, well, it's calmed down today. They're saying it's calmed down at only 40 miles an hour, but it can come in anywhere from 70 to 100 miles an hour.
Right. Tim, do you ever remember in town winds that bad? I don't ever remember hearing about that ever.
Well, it depends on where you were. Now, if in LA itself, in the basin, the hot winds would come through there, but they weren't really blowing that fast, it seemed like. But the heat would come through. But what you have in this mountainous region is you've got a lot of canyons, and these canyons act like ductwork from your furnace, where the winds pick up and they gather into that canyon and they funnel in there, so they pick up speed because of that. And so it's basically like if you open your oven and you had a big fan blowing
Stick my head in.
Yeah. Well, not just say you wouldn't have to stick your head in, you just had a big fan. It's like a leaf blower blowing 90 mile an hour wind. That's 90 degrees down through there. So that hot wind is blowing all of this fire already. And that hot wind is kind of drying everything out. And then, it's not the surrounding areas. Some people have lawns or little fake lawns that they tend to, but in these areas, particularly like in the Palisades, there's a lot of underbrush in there. There's a lot of this natural underbrush, and so that's catching fire. And again, it's an oily, tarry kind of substance in there. So basically, that's what's going on with the one reason these fires are spreading so rapidly.
You and I were talking this afternoon about the fact in Pacific Palisades, you'd be hard pressed to find a house worth less than $5 million.
Yeah, it's tough. I looked up something today that said the average price was $3.6 million, which
Uh-huh.
I don't, you know, I don't know what's on the low end there, but even if that's the case, that today they were saying that the total number of these fires, the structures have been, or the amount of structures destroyed is around 5,000. And so if it's 3.6 million each at 5,000, you're getting into $18 billion just in structural damage.
Yeah.
And then when you get all the infrastructure and, like that, that has to be fixed, you're looking at probably this is going to come out to around $50 billion.
And as you mentioned earlier to me on the phone, a lot of these houses are no longer insured because a couple of years ago, they changed the insurance laws in California, and a lot of the insurance companies pulled out. So
well, I don't know if it was about changing the laws. What I read was that the insurance companies, because of the high risk of fire and the high expense of these homes, if they were to burn, the insurance companies would lose a ton of money. And so the insurance companies actually, as a business decision, canceled the insurance. It started with State Farm and others followed suit. And it was saying something like 1,600 homes in the Pacific Palisades were affected by the State Farm move. And that's where there's probably a couple thousand or more homes burned. So a lot of these people don't have any insurance for it. So they've not only lost everything, but they've got no recourse to building any of it back. Whatever FEMA can do for them, but that's really not going to be a whole lot, basically, if they don't have the basic insurance.
You lived in Brentwood, right? Am I right about that? And Brentwood is just east of Palisades, correct?
Yeah, it's just right on the border there. I could drive about 5 or 6 blocks from my house, and I would be in the Palisades. My daughter went to Palisades High, and and to give people another idea, the Riviera Country Club, where there's a professional a PGA tournament every year, that's in the Palisades.
Right.
And, and where today, Santa Monica, which is a separate city from Los Angeles, I say separate, I mean a governing structure, but, it butts right up to Los Angeles. We were about 2 blocks from there, and they were issuing an evacuation notice to people in in the northwestern part of the town, but the evacuation warning going up to the other part of the western side of Santa Monica. So basically, we were 2 blocks from where this evacuation stuff is going on.
I heard today that they actually issued evacuation orders for the Capitol Records building at Hollywood and Vine. And if you're not familiar with the city, there's almost no trees around there. I mean, it's like downtown Hollywood,
Yeah, and Hollywood, again, is part of Los Angeles. It's not a separate city, but the Capitol Records building, everybody, that's the round building that you see in all those, the movies and stuff. They show that round building in LA. But if the structures are starting to burn, that thing stands up taller than anybody else. So it's going to get hit by the burning embers. But that was, again, because of that Sunset Fire, and which they say is contained and and now that area is pretty safe. The other thing I want to say about this is the thing I read this morning was that they'd arrested 20 people for looting. And, what my wife asked, what kind of creep goes and tries to loot homes that have been burned?
A creep.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the lowest form of stuff. But, that was one of the reasons we left LA, was the criminal element was getting worse and worse. And
Well, I don't know if I've been on Twitter this afternoon. There are people living there who say they swear they've seen people start some of these fires. And, this is the thing. It's a rumor mill. I mean,
Yeah.
Twitter's kind of like high school. So you never know but, people are saying they've seen this. People are actually.
Well, I wouldn't take anything that you're getting off social media as a fact. Let the cops investigate this and find out what's going on.
Right.
The single most common cause of forest fires in California when we were out there is people would flip their lit cigarette out the window.
Yeah.
And, again, for people who aren't familiar with the area, in the winter, what we call winter, in the January through March period, there'll be rain out there and things will get green. And then, of course, everybody waters their lawn. Lawns aren't natural, grass isn't natural for that area. It's really a desert area. But all around the area, everything dries out in the summertime. And so by September, everything is brown if it's not a maintained yard. So you flip your cigarette out into that field that's dry and brown, and it's gonna burn.
Yeah.
And if there's any kind of wind at all, it's going to spread. So, but we got to see what's going on. But there's been a lot of crap peddled on this thing.
There always is, right?
Yeah, and so I would suggest people don't listen to that. Wait, the police will do. The sheriff out there is actually pretty good, guy they've had for a while, and they're investigating everything because people have died in this. And so if arson was the cause, then the sheriff's department will continue the investigation. Of course, the fire people are, their experts are working with them to check it out. But Pasadena was, it's another area. There was a big fire there. It's still going on. Structures have burned. The one up in Sylmar is burning pretty bad. There's another one that they've got partially contained.
And like you explained earlier, Pasadena and Santa Monica, for all practical purposes, are suburbs of Los Angeles, basically.
Yeah.
They're separate cities, but right next to it, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, Pasadena is just north of Los Angeles, of downtown Los Angeles. Yeah. Proper. So, so it's it's pretty horrible that it's hit this. That Paradise Fire a few years back up in Northern California that wiped out that whole town. In terms of the number of structures, it wiped out a whole town, but it's nowhere near the number of structures and the just the amount of planes. And as of the last time I looked here, just about an hour ago, the Palisades fire is still, there's no containment on it.
Right. That's what I saw too. Yeah. Tim, I have to leave you now because I got to put Jeff on, but I do want to say that regardless of what people say on social media, you aren't anywhere near as dry as the tinder is there. Okay, I made a joke. How about that?
Yes.
I shouldn't. It's a serious subject, but I can't help myself. I have the mind of a 12-year-old. That's why.
Yeah, well, I am on fire, as you know.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Thanks for pointing that out. I got to go, big man. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, and good luck. You and
You're
Jeff
welcome.
For the rest of the show.
Thank you. We'll see you later. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That's Jeff Meyer. No, that's Tim Conaway. Jeff Meyer's coming on in just a second, and we're going to play a CONK News commercial to this is CONK.news to show to herald his arrival. Here we go. Hi, all. I want to talk to you about CONK News. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but if you're a news junkie, you should try this out. CONK News is a news aggregator. Now, there are plenty of news aggregators on the web, but CONK News is different than all the rest, and here's how. Most other news aggregators will lump the top stories from each news source under that news source. The top 10 stories, like, for example, from Fox News, Breitbart, the New York Post, etc. What CONK News does is it sends its servers out onto the web to over 75 different news sources every 3 hours. And yes, this is an automated process, but in this case, that's actually a good thing. And collects the latest stories from said 75 sources and then lays them out on its own front page in the order they were posted, regardless of the source. So you see the latest stories at the top of the front page, regardless of where they're from. And this is all free to you. You don't need to log in. You don't need to subscribe, register, nothing. It's completely free. All you have to do is go to CONK.com to check it out. That's CONK.com, 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 CONK News. That's theme music for you.
I love it.
Jeff Meyer, CEO and publisher of CONK.news. Joining us.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, man. I don't know if you
Been a
caught
while.
I don't know if you caught any of the conversation.
Yeah.
Today, but man,
Yeah, CONAWAY looks good.
he does, and he's on fire.
He's on fire and he ain't dry.
Oh God, I'm terrible.
His conversation with you, Jim, reminds me of I had a customer at the base of Mount Wilson, which is in the
Northeast corner.
Yeah,
right?
Part of the San Gabriel mountain range.
Yeah.
And I knew that Eaton fire was getting close. And when I was out at this customer's location several times, and they always said, see those radio towers up there? Everyone thinks it's for the radio and TV stations. They're like, next to those are a whole bunch of government radar and stuff. You can't see. You can see the radio towers, but the high-tech stuff is hidden behind there.
Uh-huh.
He says, and if there's a fire here, believe me, every house will burn. They'll save that mountainside no matter what. And KTLK has an article, and it says, the Eaton fire threatened to destroy critical broadcast transmission equipment atop Mount Wilson and San Gabriel Mountains. Fire crews launched an aggressive aerial attack and managed to spare the equipment. So,
of course they did.
That's right. That's our government. They saved their shit.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is really our shit.
That's right. Of course. Of course. But no, they're going to save it, man.
They'll let 5,000 structures go down, but they're saving their radar.
That's right.
Or whatever it is.
How do you think they start these fires? You know, it's like, hey, actually, that's something I got here on the rundown. I want to run by you. Now, I was telling Conaway, I was on Twitter this afternoon reading a whole bunch of stuff. You know, people are so conspiracy theorists run wild, and who am I to talk? I'm the king of conspiracy theorists. But I get the distinct impression people are just grasping at anything because they don't trust the government to tell them anything right. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten to the point where no one trusts the government for anything.
Well, in some of these, I have a former tax write-off that lives down in Laguna Beach, which is very south of where this is. It's southern Orange County. And so we were watching the NBC channel 4 on TV here, and they were showing the Palisades fires, and then all of a sudden their helicopter was back, and they're like, oh, look at this fire in this 50 miles away, a fire lit up in some canyon. That was a bunch of walking trails and stuff. It's like, well, the wind wasn't even blowing that way, so why did that thing cook off? It wasn't like a lightning bolt hit it. The helicopter was up. And so, and to your point, you shouldn't trust the government because they are going to lie to you.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it terrible? Now people just assume it. They assume that the government's not going to tell them anything truthful.
Well, we should have assumed it the whole time, right?
Yeah. At least
to tell the truth. I had one of my employees send me a note today that on the post office was pasted a sticker on the door. It said National Day of Mourning for former President Jimmy Carter. Now, if you want to mourn Jimmy Carter, that's great. But why are you shutting down commerce because the post office dictates commerce. If you've got a check you're waiting for to pay some vendor bill or payroll, and the post office just decides for some reason that today, because of Carter's funeral, the rest of us have to suffer. That's just
especially he was president 44 years ago.
Yeah, well, I don't care if he was 4 weeks ago. My life is going on. He's gone. Don't tell me that he's more valuable than me, because that's bullshit.
Speaking of that, did you see the high school cafeteria shenanigans that went on at the funeral? It was pretty, man, a whole bunch of people who don't want to talk to each other.
Mike Pence isn't going to get any because he stood up to shake Don's hand, and
and his wife didn't.
Right? Yeah, he's cut off.
And then, well, apparently Brock didn't shake Trump's hand, but they ended up sitting next to each other and had a very animated conversation. Trump made Obama laugh at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I watched CNN's coverage of it, so there was some snarky bitch on there that said, I'm sure President Obama just did it because they were on camera, but he didn't really want to talk to him.
I just want to point out to the viewers, you said that, I didn't.
Yeah, I did. That was me. Sorry.
That's all right. No, I love it.
Well, if it was one of my gals from MSNBC, I would have said, this news anchor made a comment.
No,
I don't like seeing that. Because I'm an MSNBCer.
That was Jake Tapper, that snarky bitch. By the way, just as an aside, I don't know if you saw this on the news today, ABC has released that they're going to do a weekend version of The View. So in other words, instead of pulling back, they're doubling down.
Why wouldn't you? They're all Kodak. Just think of Kodak film. They're all Kodak.
Oh my God! And anybody under 50 doesn't know what you're talking about.
That's right. Right.
We used to have to go to the drugstore and get the film developed, and it would take a week to come back, and then you'd see your pictures. That's right. Holy shit!
The kid behind the counter saw the risque ones.
That's right.
Before your wife,
and he would copy them before he gave them to you.
That's right.
Oh my God. Oh, so. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
They say the only people watching MSNBC are conservatives because they want to figure out just how stupid the other side is going to continue to go.
I have to tell you this, Jeffrey. I went to see my 100-year-old mother yesterday. I spent the night there.
Yeah.
And she says to me, I'm not making this up. She says, Jim, I discovered this wonderful new cable news channel. It's called MSNBC. And she said, do you watch that? And I said, well, she said, you don't like it, do you? And I said, no, it's not my favorite. She said, well, I like it because I think they tell the truth. But anyway, she said that. So she has it on all the time, and I'm watching it. Now, other than Morning Joe, I basically don't see much of this at all,
Right.
So I'm watching it, and my first thought is, regardless of the political opinion, this is really bad broadcasting. Yeah. It's like they got nothing going on. It's like, Jesus, I mean, a bunch of dull talking heads, a bunch of, hapless chicks, and then they got some guests on. It's real. I mean, it's like a poor imitation of Fox News. It's like, it's just really bad. It's like, I don't know. And so then they're wondering why it isn't working for them. I don't know.
Right.
No,
yeah, it's terrible broadcasting, but I just can't miss Joe and Mika. And they weren't on this morning because they had to go to the Carter funeral too.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, Mika played with the Carter girl in the White House.
She grew up there. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's important. She's been in the White House
as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where were you as a kid? You were in a bar.
That's right. Exactly. I was getting my PhD in alcohol consumption.
With flying colors.
That's right. Top of the class, Joe.
Oh my God. So Jeffrey, I don't know if you've seen this, but Trump's polling personal popularity has went over 50% for the first time ever. All this stuff they've thrown at him for 10 years, all this stuff, Russiagate, I mean, it looks like he is going to enter office as a convicted felon because next Friday, Marchand's going to sentence him. And although Marchand's already said he won't be sentenced to any jail time, he's already told him that he will probably, he's found guilty. So he will enter and nobody cares. Nobody seems to care. Like,
No, right. Just ask MSNBC. They keep shouting it, and
well,
it
that's
goes
the thing.
into a funnel.
Right. And the more, now you wonder, the more they keep shouting it, the more they're digging themselves in a hole. If no one's listening, no one agrees, why are they doing this? They're doing this because they don't have anything else? I don't know.
Yeah, well, they only talk to themselves, so they wouldn't know if they were doing something wrong anyways. They obviously don't watch their polling, or they would change, right?
You'd think so.
I mean, there's not a business on this planet that if they were doing the customer service that MSNBC was, they wouldn't say to themselves, we're gonna be done soon. Should we change? Their answer is no.
No, that's right.
No.
And I don't understand how they get away with it. You're absolutely right. It's like they ignore the ratings. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. You know, you'd think that there'd be some impetus to change something, but so far, no. I don't. You know, I don't know.
God love them. I mean, I'll be sad if they actually go off the air.
And they might. I mean, you know, there's a distinct possibility, or at least they'd be changed with beyond recognition. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, well, and now they have that Jonathan Lemire that used to have the Way Too Early show. He's got a new show, and there's this Ali Vitale. She's on there, and she's, I think, based in D.C., and he was in New York, or I don't really know the gymnastics of it. Anyway, man, she wakes up pissed off, you know, and she makes her bed before she gets out of it. She's one of those, you know, the corners are pulled tight, and it's made when she pops out. Oh, she is. I've been trying to get up just slightly earlier. I mean, it's like, you know, 4:30 in the morning here in flyover country.
Oh, now I gotta watch. Now I'm at 4:30. I gotta watch.
You gotta turn it on.
Oh God,
she's just pissed. So she's pounding the hell out of some guy every night.
Oh man, I love you for talking about this stuff.
Hey, kind of what you guys are talking about. So LA County is 4,084 square miles. I looked it up on the Google, and as you know, if it's on the Google,
it's true.
As a publisher of CONK, it's absolutely, it came down with the 10 Commandments.
That's right.
Down the mountain.
That's
Didn't
right.
get fumbled like in the movie where they had to go make some more. Anyway, that's 2.56 million acres, right?
Yeah.
That converts to, if my math, and even if I'm wrong, in comparison, Joe Biden locked up 650 million acres from oil drilling. So think about that, 650 million acres.
Right.
LA County, which is 4,000 square miles, is only 2.5 million acres.
Yeah.
So it's a massive area. This guy, you know, I mean, that'll go away when he's done on the 20th.
Well, yes. Well, what is that, spite? I mean, seriously, is he doing this out of spite? I mean, this doesn't look good, you know?
Well, you're right. It doesn't look good. And why wouldn't you want us to look good? Right?
Sorry?
Why wouldn't you want the states to look strong and good? You've got great grandkids now, right? He just announced he has a great grandkid. Why wouldn't he want the best experience for that kid?
Well, does he hate America, or is he just so totally, completely into it for himself? But the thing is, he's done. You know,
Right.
You know, maybe that hasn't registered with him yet personally. Maybe it hasn't. You know, I mean, when he leaves in 10 days, whenever it is, his career is over. You know,
Yeah, and he will not have a speaking circuit like the rest of the presidents were able to enjoy.
He was speaking about the fires today. He could barely talk. I mean, this he's almost. I was wondering about taking bets whether he even lives through the end of the year. I don't even know if he's going to make that. I mean, he's walking on borrowed time right now. So you're right. He's not going to have a speaking career. You know, there's a possibility he might not have a library, at least while he's alive, because everyone's pissed off at him. You know.
Yeah, so, and that is. Let's go back to Trump's ratings are going up. Well, they're only going up because what the media used to be able to say is he's lying about this, or there's no advantage to taking over Greenland. Now all the private media, or this new media complex like you and CONK, now we're getting the word out that, hey, the people of Greenland aren't happy with the Dutch.
No, they aren't.
So if a better deal comes along, they might consider it.
I got to pull this up here. I put this had this on the rundown to talk to you about the fact that some people figured out how much Greenland will actually cost. So here's the different figures. Hold on just a second here. Okay, if you priced it by the acre, it would probably be about $3.47 trillion. If you priced it by the habitable land, because most of it is ice, it would probably be about what they figure the habitable lands between 5.5 and 16 million acres. At that point, it'd be between 35 and 104 billion dollars, or this is the island has a GDP of 3 billion. So that would make that means based on regular stock pricing on the stock exchange would be about 2.4 billion. There's all sorts of different things here. There was one particularly interesting one, and that is let me see if I can find it. I should have done this hadn't I? Oh, this was the interesting one, Jeffrey. If you compare to what we paid for Alaska from the Russians, that was since 1867, $7.2 million, which today would be $140 million, which is just a freaking steal. I mean, it's hard to believe we bought that whole thing they thought it was worthless, but no one knew about land rights and shit then. So
correct. Yeah. And again, I've heard some people talking about this, and the way Trump would present this to the people there is, we're going to give you X down, and then you get a percentage of what gets extracted out of there for oil, rare minerals. And so generationally, your family will be set. It'd be like like an Alaskan Inuit.
There's only 57,000 people that live there. So the other scheme I've seen is that besides paying Denmark for it, you'd actually pay every citizen a certain amount,
and just give them a yearly retainer,
right?
You own a casino.
Yeah, and if you paid Denmark enough for it, they probably go for it. I mean, this is actually a doable thing, I mean, they might be able to pull this off.
Well, if we don't do it, the Chinese are gonna.
Well, that's the problem, right? Exactly, right.
And that stupid Mayor Bass from California was in Ghana, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that show? The gold show that's on Discovery, Gold Rush?
No, actually I haven't.
So there's a show that's on. It's kind of like the fishing show. They show the season of the gold up in the Klondike. These guys extracting the gold. Well, they decided to go down to Ghana one season. This is probably 10 years ago, right? And so they go down there. The film crew goes down there with some of these mining companies, and they're in Ghana, and they're negotiating with the local warlord for digging gold on their land. Then they go out there, and this show only was on maybe for 3 or 4 episodes, and then it just magically disappeared. Well, in the second show, these guys are like, hey, we paid you for this money. We get out to this chunk of land, and there's someone already mining it, and the guys have machine guns. And the one guy in the show goes, looks like they were Chinese. And the warlord's like, we didn't double sell this thing. And so I'm wondering if this Bass, the Mayor Bass of California, has been tied to some pretty awful people, especially the Castro family. And so I'm just wondering how much the Chinese have taken over Ghana, and if she's got a connection there. And it's going to come out because she is just such a terrible person. She knew this storm was coming, and she still went to go to see some awards ceremony. I mean, who cares what it was? She didn't go down there to get a life-saving kidney transplant.
That's exactly what I'm wondering, though, Jeffrey. It's like, it seems like pretty much everybody's on the teat of the Chinese,
Yes.
I mean, in and of itself, I don't give her that much shit about going to Ghana or wherever the hell she wants to go, but it's the reason she went. That's the real scary part. And the reason she might be on the dole, that's the reason she went.
Yeah. I mean, when I was in Africa, we were going down a road that was built by the Chinese, one of those Belt Road initiatives, and they were there. having the Africans cleaning up the trash on the side of the road, and the Chinese dudes are all standing on the high ground watching them.
Yeah.
So they're out there, they're using their money to better their government and their country, not their citizens, obviously. But it's happening all over the world, and we need to step it up.
We do, totally. Yeah, I mentioned this on the show before, and I know I've told you about this privately, about the fact that my cousin is involved in the transportation department of the state of Minnesota. And you remember this is about 10 years ago. There's this big announcement that a bunch of private investors were going to build a high-speed rail from Rochester, Minnesota to downtown Minneapolis. The reason, for those of you listening who don't know, the Mayo Clinic is in downtown Rochester, Minnesota. It's 90 minutes away by drive from downtown Minneapolis. And the people at the Mayo Clinic, they shoot themselves every day that they didn't put the clinic in Minneapolis. But that's, that would happen 100 years ago. So now the idea was to put this high-speed rail in that you'd be able to do the whole trip in half the time, 45 minutes. So, and there's a bunch of rich guys in town, and they said, no, we don't even want any government money. We're going to fund this just off the tolls, just off the tickets. Okay, fine. And so that went on, and then I remember I'm talking to my cousin Andy, and he's involved in this. I said, well, Andy, whatever happened to that high-speed rail? Because it kind of fell off the radar. He says, I'll tell you what happened to it. We found out that all those private investors were fronting for the Chinese government. That's the reason we stopped it. Yeah. Their goal is to take over the entire infrastructure of the United States. One road, one train stop at a time. That's what they're trying to do.
Right. And we can't forget Jimmy Carter, that we all couldn't get mail today for, that gave the Panama Canal away for $1, and the Chinese ended up sweeping in there and taking control of it.
Right. And also, first of all, why did he do that? There was no logical reason for him to do it other than to make the Panamanians feel good. Right. 35.
And talk about the difference between these moron presidents and Trump. Trump would have said, that's fine. Every American ship that goes through there doesn't pay the toll.
Right.
And every other ship that goes through there, we get 50% of whatever you're charging. So we're fine.
Right. And I'm guessing that's going to be the negotiating position. That's what he wants.
And I'm sure that's what that's what he's going to start with.
And even if you're going to give it away, that's what Carter should have did. You're right.
Yes.
We should have been waived the fees for no other reason, at the very least.
And we get a piece of the action because we want you to know our blood, sweat, and tears built that thing. The world wouldn't have it without America.
35,000 Americans died building the Panama Canal. That's not like 35,000.
Right.
Like
horrible deaths.
Yes, malaria,
mosquitoes.
Right. It was awful. It was awful. And it cost us, I can't remember what it was that was around 1896 or something like that. I think. I don't know what the cost was then, but it was an enormous financial cost. We paid for it. And then we just gave it away.
Right. The French brought the first shovels saying, well, we just finished the Suez Canal. We can do this. And they ran away after about 4 or 5 years. They're like,
that's right. They did. They just threw their hands up, said, we can't do this. I know. And and getting back to Carter too, and we've talked about this before, but I think this bears repeating. So he might have been a pretty good guy personally, but there's no sugarcoating the fact his presidency was awful. It really was.
Right. You
can't get around it. And it's like, okay, we honor this guy because he's a former president. We honor the office. And he was a good man, morally. He was. So, and a lot of presidents aren't, but his presidency was really terrible. It was awful. It was the worst thing since Biden, but Biden's kind of beat now.
Right. And both of those presidents had terrible vice presidents. And we know Walter Mondale was terrible because he came from Minnesota as a lousy attorney in a law firm that the law firm said, we can't have you be an attorney. We're going to stick you in government.
Yeah.
Because you can schmooze the room and move up.
Otherwise, upwards.
Yes.
Only in America can you do that.
Same thing as Vice President Harris, who no one talked to when she came in the room.
Oh my God, yeah, no one.
Talk about scorned.
Oh, if she thinks she's running for president in 28, she's nuts.
Let's have her. Bring her back.
Jeffrey, I'm curious to see what you think. I think she has a good possibility of winning the governorship of California. I really do, because they're crazy. The voters are crazy.
Yeah, this fire, however, I mean, and this thing is not over. You know, they're talking these winds will be back tomorrow, Friday, maybe subsiding on Saturday. Who knows how much further that thing goes in the next 24 to 30 hours. You are not going to be able to be in LA County and not see what stupid politicians do.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a bunch of celebrities who've lost their homes who are on Twitter right now railing against the Democratic government. And of course, they're all far lefties themselves, but they're just, it's like they're just mad. And they should be mad, because this was actually, I don't know if I'd say preventable, but it shouldn't have been the scale of this should not have scaled up.
Hey, go over to Wisconsin, and every power line, the trees are mowed back 50 yards on either side of the pole. They don't care if they're going through your yard or through the woods. They get the trees away from it, and they keep the shrubs underneath it, because same thing. Wisconsin produces a lot of lumber, and they don't want it getting nuked down because of a power line burns up 4 counties of sellable timber.
Yeah.
It's just what you do. You maintain it.
Well, yeah. But that it's what you do, but they didn't do it. They're not doing it.
And they had no intention of it.
No, they didn't. No. I just read today that the LA County runs what they call the Los Angeles County Water Corporation, which takes care of water for the entire county. And though, if you've seen the movie, for our viewers, if you've seen the movie Chinatown, that's kind of a fictionalized version of how they got water into Los Angeles County in the 1920s. I mean, there was a huge deal. They took it from Owens Valley. The aqueduct, the LA aqueduct, is like a huge construction project. It was one of the great wonders of the world in the 1920s. And they have a corporation, a public corporation that runs it, and the woman who runs the corporation gets paid $750,000 a year of public money. And so, like, what did she do?
And that's the thing. So think about this: they have these big storage tanks, right, in a well, pump water into them to keep the pressure, right? I mean, that's why you have a water tower in your town. They push the water up there. Gravity pushes it down, so you get pressure in your house or pressure in the fire hydrant. And they know that they're going to cut the power. They just know they cut the power because they haven't trimmed the crap underneath the power lines, and if they arc, you get a fire. So they know they're going to cut the power around these storage tanks up, and these are massive storage tanks up high. But they put, diesel generators up there. Like, okay, if the power goes out, Billy, hit the switch and start the generator. Well, no one's been maintaining the generators, let alone keeping them fueled. So they cut the power. Billy, start the generators. Hold on, we got to get some fuel up there. Right? And all of a sudden the firefighters are down there going, hey, I've seen guys at the nursing home with more pressure than this.
Yeah. And I bet that generator hasn't even been run in 30 years.
More than likely, right.
Right.
Right. Now, if it was in a private business, they would have them at least an annual fire the thing up.
Right.
Because we want to make sure it works, because we're paying Caterpillar to maintain it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to Sean Hannity this afternoon in the car, and there's a woman on, and she says she's in the Palisades, and she's going nuts on the phone. I don't blame her. It's like everything's burning down. And she said, I don't understand this. I said, I have water coming out of my tap, but on the edge of the street, there's no water in the fire hydrant. She says, how does that? And I got to admit, I don't know how this works either. You probably do. But I
don't know. I thought it was all fed by the same water main.
I kind of thought the same thing. She did. She said, like, we should be turning off our water in the house so they can run and of course they should, but she's got a point. Why is there water in her house and not on the street? I don't understand. And I don't understand. I'm like, my God.
And maybe it isn't. Maybe they don't run the regular tap water.
Yeah.
because of that, because it doesn't need to be treated. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good
Right.
question. Well, we're going to get a lot of answers because this thing is not going away.
Yeah.
I mean, like Conaway said it, they're estimating $18 billion. That's the lowest side. The insurance company, someone's going under on this
Oh
one.
yeah, for sure. Several, I'm sure several. And that's even assuming, like we were talking, that a lot of the homes aren't even insured anymore because the insurance companies got out. I thought it was kind of regulations. Conaway says it was because of risk, but whatever reason, they're not there.
Right.
So
right.
yeah. So, and the ones that are there are going to go under. It's just terrible. This is unbelievable.
And they could be the same one that's writing your homeowner's policy in flyover country America.
Right. And then you don't have an insurance company.
Right.
Oh my God. I don't know.
No, this is all the timing of this stuff is good. It's sad that there's people going through this, but we've talked about it for the last 2 years. There's going to be pain with this because there has to be pain. Without pain, nothing changes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Right.
You don't get in shape. You don't quit drinking.
Right.
You don't quit chasing. I mean, whatever pain factor comes into your life for everyone in America, it's for you to stop and say, I've got it really good. I need to straighten my shit out. And that's, to me, what this all is exposing. Our government takes money, pisses it away, and then they say we need more money.
Right. That's right. And nothing enrages me more about the fact, it's like, I don't mind giving the government some money because they need it, but you're absolutely right. They flush 50% of it and then they say they need more money. And the thing, and when does it stop? That's the part I don't understand. It's like the Democrats, it's like they always need more money. They need more money for everything. And at some point, I mean, this country was built on a tax revolt. I mean, at some point people are going to say enough. And maybe that point is now. Maybe it is,
Yeah. I mean, and there's all this stuff externally, all these other places in the world. I mean, look at Canada. Trudeau took the coward's way out, so he gets to hang around. Didn't get voted out. He said he was quitting.
Yeah. Well, if I'm right, under a parliamentary system, that means he's still in Parliament. He's just not the prime minister. He's still there. It's like Nancy Pelosi. She gave up the speakership, but she's still in the House.
Yes, right. So you still have to listen to their stupidity. And when did Adam Schiff become a senator? This last election?
Yeah, just now. Yeah.
He was on the news conference I was watching. Yeah. I'm like, what? And that's what California deserves him.
That's right.
They absolutely deserve that.
Absolutely.
The son of a bitch lied about everything, never apologized, and was promoted upward.
And that's why I think Kamala is going to win the governorship of California for that very reason. That's why
I'm not touching a bet on that with any not even lint in my pocket would I risk on that.
Jeffrey, it's always a pleasure talking with you. You know that.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so we'll hopefully we'll have you and that woman friend of yours, O'Connell, on.
Yeah.
Soon. So
yeah, she sent out a beautiful Christmas. She didn't send the card out. She put a posting on her Substack and just had a really nice Christmas message about Christ. And just super great. So
that's pretty cool.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you, man. You take care. Right. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's Jeffrey Meyer. He's the CEO and publisher of CONK.news. He wants me to call it now. It's not CONK News, just CONK.news. And that is their URL too. You can get there either with CONK.com or CONK.news. And they're promoting CONK.news now. And that's good for him. That's excellent. So I got a couple more things here before we go. And I don't like to bug Jeffrey with this stuff because I'm crazy about the UFO shit. So and I am. And I don't know if you saw this afternoon. Like I said, I've been on Twitter most of the day today, and I usually don't do that. Or this afternoon I was anyway. Excuse me. Because frankly, I have better things to do. But I wanted to see what was going on with people on this fire. And now there are people posting videos. I'm assuming the videos are real, but that doesn't mean these things are real. Of what they say are UFOs flying through the clouds and through the smoke above Los Angeles. Now, here's my, I'm king of the conspiracy theories, and I'm basically, my mission in doing the show is to tell you that the aliens are here. But that said, I know from experience, and anybody who's involved in this community knows from experience, 95% of all the things that people say are UFOs are usually misidentified. 95% of them. Only 5% are something truly unexplainable. And that doesn't even mean they're from another planet. So all that means is that something's flying through the air and we don't know what it is. So I'm not making any judgments about this at all. Could be. I mean, we know that we have a history of unexplainable objects showing up at inopportune times for our civilization. Case in point, as a matter of fact, the Battle of Los Angeles, 1942, October, if I'm right. I'm not sure. Yeah. So what happened is there was a large unidentified flying object hovering over the city of Los Angeles. One night, maybe it was February of 42, because I think it was, because it was just after the Pearl Harbor. And because Southern California, because of Pearl Harbor, was on eggshells. There was for a while there were lights out at night. You couldn't turn your lights on, all that sort of stuff. So they brought out the big guns, literally brought out the big guns and shot at this thing. Supposedly it took 1,500 rounds of shells, and it didn't come down. Now, there's no video of this, but there's actually a couple really clear pictures, and one of them was published in the Los Angeles Times then in 1942, and is still around. If you go on the internet, you can look it up. But at any rate, this thing, whatever it was, now supposedly one of these things actually crashed too, but that's going to be kind of lost. That's all really murky. But what I told you up to this point now is very public about the fact that there are pictures of this. The Army shot at it over and over again. Nothing apparently happened. So we know that these things have a tendency to show up when when unusual shit's happening on the planet. But that said, I looked at some of those videos. Yeah, those are things I can't explain what they are, but I don't know. It could be all sorts of stuff too. So I don't know. Now, why did I bring that up? I brought that up because of what we were talking about with Jeff at the start of our little interview with him. The crazy thing that I'm gathering right now is there's also, when it comes to these wildfires in LA, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories running around about how they started. People are saying there's chemtrails involved. People are saying that there's video of actual people starting them. People are saying they're seeing basically bands of uniformed people going on and starting fires. I mean, all sorts of stuff. Some of it's probably misidentification. Some of it's probably just lying. But here's my point here, and that is nobody seems to trust the government about anything. And of course, why would you at this point? The government and the mainstream media, both. Like I was telling Jeff at the top of the interview there, CNN last month, December of 2024, had its worst month rating wise ever. Now, CNN started on July 1st, or was it June 1st? Forgive me. I'm pulling this out of my butt. 1980, 44 years ago. And when it started, there were only about 500,000 televisions in America on cable. So you got to keep that in mind too. There's about last figure I think I saw about 70 million now. It used to, for years there was 100, but now it's come down to 70 because about 5, 6, 7% of everybody who's on cable. And when I say cable, I'm also talking about like Hulu Live and YouTube TV and all that sort of stuff. Anywhere where a bundle of linear cable channels, Sling, whatever you got, about 7% of all people now are dropping it every year. So I think now there's about 70 million homes at cable, and I can assure you every single one of those homes gets CNN, because CNN is the legacy, not just the legacy news channel, it's a legacy cable channel. It was the first 24-hour channel on cable of anything, let alone news. So they had their worst month of ratings ever last month, and I think it was their primetime audience, I think, was about 400,000, and they had 91,000 people in the demo. That would be people watching ages 25 to 54. So they actually topped that their first day in operation, or their first month I mean, in operation with a 500,000 homes. It's like, I mean, these people are tanking just royally, but nobody trusts them for information, and nobody trusts the government. Who do they trust? Well, stuff like what we're doing, or like Jeff said, like Kong News, or Breitbart, or Laura Logan's Substack, or that's where more and more people are getting their news from. And because, well, first of all, it's really cool because, like, or Barry Weiss, who runs the free press, my friend David Strawn really talks her up, and I talk up him and Hot Air and Red State and the Salient Media Properties. These are where people are getting more and more people are getting their news from. But because none of these entities are tied to major corporations, and I wouldn't even call Salem Media a major corporation. I call them a minor corporation. They're not that big. There's no pressure, basically, to lie for any reason. I mean, if you're on MSNBC is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, CNN is owned by oh God, I got this confused. No, I'm sorry. MSNBC is owned by Comcast. CNN is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery. Large companies, corporations. And then they don't even know, the left hand doesn't even know what the right hand's doing. It doesn't. So there is a tendency and even an encouragement to lie just to get clickbait, just to get ratings, just to get people to click through. And all right, you have to have a business model, but on the other hand, you have to respect your customer too. And I'm talking about viewers, I'm talking about customers, because what's happened here is the legacy media, the New York Times, all these traditional media companies run by these huge corporations, they've been lying to the American public for the last 10 years now, and it's coming back to bite them in the ass. And here's my question. Why didn't they figure out that was going to happen? I don't think I'm any big freaking genius sitting here, in my office in Northeast Minneapolis. I think most people would understand this. If you lie to your customers or mistreat them long enough, they're not going to come back. It's just very, very simple. You can maybe get away with it for a little while, but after 10 years, it's like over and over again. And just like Jeff was saying, it's like some of them are basically doubling down. It's like they haven't got the message. The one thing, I don't know if I read the news every day, a lot of different sources. Like, the Democrats haven't seemed to figure out why they lost. They don't seem to understand. And so they're just and of course the Republicans just think, well, that's great, as long as if they don't understand, they're going to keep losing. And that's true. They will. So, yeah, it's like, you'd like to think that you don't have to be a freaking genius to figure this stuff out, but man, people do not figure it out. And are we in just like the time, the era of stupidity? I mean, nobody seems, the LA fires. Well, like I said, you might not have been able to actually prevent them, but you certainly could have. There wouldn't have been anywhere near as big. There would have been a minor story if people had been doing their jobs, and they weren't. They simply weren't. The LA Fire Department is running this huge DEI initiative. Matter of fact, David Strawn, my friend, I'm hoping to have him on here again. We haven't had him on our friend Jazz Shaw passed away on October 30th, and he was the weekend editor at Hot Air, and David is associate editor. And when Jazz died, David ended up picking up the shift. So he's been busy as hell. So I even stopped trying to contact him. He was barely getting back to me. So because I knew he was just swamped. But he was saying that what was he saying? What am I talking about? All right, Jim, that's good. That's good. You forgot. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we're an hour into this. So I think we'll just call it a night. Now, next week, we're coming back on Monday. I don't have any guests lined up yet for next week, but I will. And because we're kind of getting after the holidays, it was just the Christmas and New Year's, the timing was very inopportune for what we do here. I mean, we basically took 2.5 weeks off. We even took off more than that because we had to skip our last show because I got sick very suddenly before the holidays. So we didn't even do that. And Blog Talk Radio is no more. So, I mean, I promise you, and this is true, we're going to have telephone calling capability here, and we are. And I think I might have it up and running on Monday. So we'll see. So, but anyway, yeah, we're pretty much getting back to normal here. So that's good. So, I know we're gonna start putting back some of our video elements that we were doing before too. So I'm happy to tell you that. But anyway, we'll have a show on Monday. I like to do solo shows on Monday because contrary to what everybody else thinks, there's a lot of news that happens over the weekend, so there's plenty to talk about. So, but I might have the new phone system up and running on Monday. We'll see. But that'll be 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. You know that. Uh, you know me. I'm Jim Peters. This show's called Jim Peters at Night. Want to thank Tim Conaway for coming on, former executive editor of Hustler magazine. He worked for the Larry Flint Publications for many years. He edited Hustler for about 15 years, and then went on to edit. You know, most people don't know this or remember, but Flint Publications owned a whole bunch of other magazines. They're known for Hustler, but they owned, I think, 24 different magazines. And I think at some point, after he got done with his editing Hustler, I think he ended up running the rest of them, if I'm right. But anyway, I want to thank him. So he lived in Los Angeles. I lived in Los Angeles. You know, I mean, as he said, you know, there's always been fires there, but nothing like this. It's really been amazing. The most amazing thing is the fires are actually in town. I mean, I live here in Minneapolis. And I had said to my wife, can you imagine that sort of fire in our neighborhood? Because that's basically what it is, you know. And I want to thank Jeff Meyer, CEO of CONK.news. Always a pleasure talking to him. And it's always a pleasure talking to you. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you, wherever you are. We'll see you on Monday, everybody. Have a nice weekend. Take care.